Have you ever stepped into a place and immediately felt like you didn't belong? Not just out of place, but unwelcome. Like something was watching, waiting for you to make a mistake. I never believed in things like that until the Hollow Trail. It was supposed to be a normal weekend. Just me, my best friend Jake, and his younger brother Ryan. We'd grown up hiking in Oregon, spent years exploring trails, camping under the stars. This was nothing new, but this trail was different. Jake found it on an old forum, a path in the Umpqua National Forest that wasn't on any official maps. Someone in the comments said people go there, but they don't come back the same. We thought it was just campfire horror nonsense. We packed light, tents, food, knives for safety, and set out Friday morning. The road to the trailhead was barely a road, just a dirt path swallowed by trees. By the time we parked, our phones had lost signal. Jake grinned as he tossed his backpack over his shoulder. 3 days off the grid. You ready? Ryan hesitated. Something feels weird. Jake rolled his eyes. You always think something feels weird. I laughed, but deep down, I felt it too. The trail was overgrown, barely visible. The trees leaned inward, branches tangled like skeletal fingers. Sunlight barely made it through. The deeper we went, the quieter it got. By noon, there was no birdsong, no rustling leaves. Even our own footsteps felt muffled. Why is it so quiet? Ryan whispered. Jake waved him off. Relax, it's just dense forest. But I knew that wasn't true. Oregon's forests were always alive with sound. This wasn't normal. Then we heard it, a soft clicking, like two stones tapping together. Ryan stopped. What was that? We listened. The clicking came again, soft, rhythmic, closer. Jake shook his head. Probably just a woodpecker. But I didn't believe that. We kept walking. The clicking followed, always just far enough away that we couldn't see its source. Then Ryan grabbed my arm. Look. To our left, deep in the trees, something moved. A figure. Tall, thin. Too tall. It stood just behind the trees, motionless, watching. I felt my chest tighten. Jake. But Jake laughed. Nice try, Ryan. Ryan shook his head. I'm not joking. I wasn't either. The figure shifted. Its limbs were too long, its fingers ending in sharp points. The sun had started to set, casting deep shadows, but I could see its face, or rather, where its face should have been. Hollow. Jake saw it then. His smirk vanished. What the hell is that? I grabbed his arm. We need to go, now. We turned back. The clicking sound followed. Faster now, closer. And then came the whispers. Not words, just sounds, curling through the trees, slipping into my ears like something trying to burrow inside. We ran. But the trail had changed. It wasn't the same path we had taken in. The trees had shifted, twisting, growing closer together. The forest wasn't letting us leave. The clicking was right behind us. Ryan tripped, hitting the ground hard. I grabbed his arm, pulling him up as he gasped for air. Where's the car? He choked out. We should have been close. We had only hiked a few miles in. But the trail was gone. Jake swore under his breath, spinning in circles. It has to be here. It has to be. Then we saw the cabin. It stood just off the path, old and rotting, like it had been abandoned for decades. The windows were black with grime. A single wooden chair sat on the porch. On the chair was a pile of stones, clicking stones. Ryan backed away. Number no way. But the whispers were getting louder. The trees were closing in. We had no choice. We ran inside, slamming the door behind us. The air was thick, stale. Dust floated in the fading light. A single chair sat in the middle of the room. More stones were stacked on the seat. Then, scratching. Long, slow scratches against the walls, the door, the windows. Then, in a whisper that made my blood freeze, "Let me in." It was my voice. I looked at Jake and Ryan, but their faces were pale, because they heard it too, their own voices, software, pleading. "Come outside." Ryan started crying. He knows our voices. The scratching grew violent. The door shuddered as if something massive was pressing against it. Then, silence. Complete, suffocating silence. I whispered, "What do we do?" Jake pulled out his knife. "We run." I wasn't sure we could. I wasn't sure we were even still in our world. The door creaked open, and for a moment, the air felt different, like we had stepped into something else. The trees weren't trees anymore. Their bark had faces, frozen in silent screams. The forest wasn't real, but we had to move. We ran. The whispers chased us, the clicking never stopping. I felt cold fingers brush my back. Then the trail reappeared, just like that, as if it had never vanished. We hit the path, running harder. The moment our feet touched gravel, everything stopped. No whispers, no clicking, no shadows in the trees. We didn't stop until we reached the car. Ryan was shaking. Jake fumbled with the keys. I looked back at the trees, half expecting to see something standing there. But there was nothing, just the dark, empty woods. Jake turned the ignition. We sped off, not speaking, barely breathing. Then Ryan gasped. He held out his hand. In his palm was a small black stone. None of us put it there. We don't talk about that trip anymore. Ryan doesn't hike, ever. Jake pretends it never happened, but I catch him staring at the woods sometimes, like he's listening for something. And me, sometimes at night, I hear it. Click, click, click. Right outside my window, waiting.